Good evening. So drive and jive. I don't know what day it is anymore. Is it November the 29th? 28th? Sunday anyway. Yeah, we're living in a time of 2020. I think is the year they've weaponized ignorance. It's amazing, really. It really is. It's they've managed to switch it so. For instance, I just messaged my friend a minute ago. You get some people, they rarely comment. They just put like a angry face or something like that on a post, just to show their distaste or whatever word you want to put on it, on what you're posting. And he's been doing it for a while now. Fair play to me. He's one of the few who's been from what I consider to be quite early on for most people, at least. Sort of like May, June. I mean, it's people like myself who've been doing it since day one. Since before the lockdown, we were saying this is nonsense. But he puts posts up. He puts quite a lot up every day. Anyway, I saw this one. It was just like an angry face. A couple of likes, and you get this angry face. So I've sort of sent him it like, just like laughing. Like, do people still do that? Like, I still find it amazing that we're 9 months or 8 months into a pandemic, however long you want to put a time frame on this nonsense now, where nobody's dropping down in the street. There's been no unexpected deaths. I mean, everyone gets ill now and again. That's just, if you take the population over the period of course of like 5 years, I bet everyone will have an illness at some point which is quite severe. Just a natural detoxification, what we call the flu. Unless you're really, really healthy, and even then, I mean, you get times of stress. You could have a bereavement or employment issue. There could be anything going on in your life, relationship breakdown. Well, you're going to go for periods of time where your system is going to build up toxicity. Like I've said for months now, and this needs to be considered with the fact that they've combined flu with COVID in the counting, is that we would have been expecting a higher than number amount of flu, at least diagnoses and issues this winter. On the understanding of what the flu is, which is a detoxification, which amongst other things is caused by stress, fear, a lack of key vitamins like vitamin D, which comes from sunlight. These things will cause higher toxicity in your system. The detoxification process that we call a flu, or there's other manners as well, but the main one we call a flu, well, that, or at least one, the obvious one that I'm aware of that we call a flu, well, that would have been expected more this year. A hell of a lot more, which they're going to relabel every single one of them as COVID-19. But anyways, back to this story of my mate's post. So I sent him a little screenshot, just like little emoji, like laughing. I rarely use emojis, but sometimes I like these smiley faces. They make me laugh themselves, like wide-mouthed. But I messaged him, like, and he went, "Oh, that's me, Mrs. Mum." I was like, oh, "You belter." But it's just a repetition. It's the same with anything. Same with the masks. So more and more people gradually just put it on. Just, well, everyone's wearing masks. Well, there is a virus, so it's just keep repeating it. Keep it in the psyche until it becomes a norm. Same as they did with the war on terror. No different to that. Just keep repeating it. Keep these events that they keep coming up, these acts of terrorism, scare everybody. Keep that perpetuation of that fear caused by that, which they, almost entirely create on their own. The same as this nonsense going on now with COVID. I mean, it's getting to the stage now as well. We're having a few friends who have diagnosed for it, and a few of them have been ill at the time of their diagnosis. I mean, I had a friend I've known for a long time who was diagnosed. His dad hadn't been well for a long, long time either. And his dad, unfortunately, bless his soul, passed away. Very lucky, a long-standing good citizen in our community. He's passed away. Of course, he was COVID. I've no doubt. It would have been on maybe the death certificate. I'm not entirely sure about that statement, so I'm not going to hold that as true. But he was diagnosed with it. I'd be very surprised if it wasn't on the death certificate, which I very much hope that isn't on there. But you're going to get more of that now. And of course, people's personal experience, it comes back to the simple point with all of this. There's nothing personal, and you have to take that out of it. Because when it comes to personal, when your emotion takes over, sometimes, confirmation bias will be very much prevalent in those moments. So you have to remember at all times, there is no test that can test and diagnose COVID-19. That's a factual statement. Just let that sink in a second. There is no test whatsoever that can diagnose COVID-19. There never has been. There isn't. So every single diagnosis, whether it be a case or a death or any of this, it means nothing. It means nothing. I mean, I like to use the analogy almost that, because you can do this. If you tested under the same conditions they're testing for COVID, so the deaths within 28 days, the test that isn't testing for COVID, but they're labelling it as COVID, testing people that are already ill, testing people in communities that are not showing any symptoms of any illness, but they're going down as a case, which is not the medical definition of the term, not anything near close to that, but they're putting it as that as such to scare the population into accepting lockdowns and everything else they're bringing in, wearing the masks. So let's just turn that around. Let's just say everything is the same, except for you're going to change COVID to apple juice. So you're the test. People are claiming there's an outbreak of apple juice causing deaths with respiratory illnesses. You've got a test that doesn't test for apple juice, but when they say it's apple juice, which a lot of the population will have apple juice in them anyway, i.e. coronavirus in them anyway, whether you want to go along with the terminology of the germ theory, which is the theory, and that must be stressed, no factual substance to that statement at all. As Dr. Hodgkinson said, I like the term, underlined in neon lights, it's a theory. But let's just go along with that theory for a moment. Every case comes from a test that doesn't test for what they say it is. Let's just say it's for apple juice. That means that if enough people will probably drink apple juice in a 28-day period, or across the population, that if you test enough people for apple juice, they're going to show positive for apple juice. Okay, where are you going with this? Well, all you need to do with that is claim a loose association that apple juice is causing these deaths, which they just claim on a whim, which is exactly what they've done with this COVID, caused by this apparent SARS-CoV-2 virus, which they've never proved it even exists, let alone causes disease, so they just made it up out of thin air. So let's just do the same with apple juice a minute. So, you test enough people who are already ill, and I've no doubt that a lot of them may get apple juice brought to their hospital beds. And this is just what could use orange juice, or any type of juice you want to use, or anything that would be in many people's system much of the time. And then if they die, there's your figures. Because they tested positive for apple juice and they died within 28 days. Apple juice is causing deaths. You can say, well, apple juice doesn't cause deaths. Neither does COVID. You'd be like, that can't be. Yeah, that's what they're doing, mate. It's that obvious. It's fucking scam. It's an absolute scam. Pardon my language there. But it's that blatant. And this is just going to go on and on and on until people not only say, I don't agree, you've got to say no. You've got to stop complying with it. You have to stop doing what they're telling you to do if you feel that that's not right. Which is basically anything that you were doing before, give or take, just continue doing. That's all you need to remember. What do I do in this scenario? Just do what you were doing before. Just go about your day. If the police want to get involved in that, well, you need to speak to them and make them aware of the information that you know. Because they probably don't know, otherwise they won't be doing the job they're doing. And if they are, they're a psychopath, in which case it's not going to make a lot of difference anyway. So, people need to engage in this now and approach it from a perspective of the people enforcing this, the people going along with this. It's not as against them. It's that's you, that's me, that's us. That's just expressions of ourselves. And they've only got that perspective and that perception due to information primarily that they have. Now that could be for a whole host of reasons. They could be given the information, ignoring it, who knows? But you don't know that for sure. And I would strongly suggest most people that I know now, and again, a lot of people work on this group mentality aspect there, they look around to see what the majority think and they go with that. Now, the other side of that is understanding that people's minds they're malleable. And that's not malleable in terms of trying to mislead them. That's malleable in terms of they're not set in their beliefs because they don't have a set belief in that. They're following what they feel is right, as most people do. So a way of undermining that perspective is making them aware that what they're following is not only not right, it's wrong. Whether it be the lockdowns, which you could start on any aspect of that. Whether it be just examples, you look at Sweden, no lockdown. Give or take, they lock down in care homes. There's still a high amount of care home deaths, and they have a high population in that respect as well of that. But you look at it comparatively to the countries, they're miles under. It's not even comparative. So you cannot possibly say that not having a lockdown would have caused more deaths, because we've got all the proof in the world to show that didn't. So it didn't cause more deaths. Why do the countries that had severe lockdowns, such as Peru, UK, why have they had so many excess deaths? Now we're asking the right questions. Why do they have more than Sweden? Surely they have the same if it doesn't make a difference. Right, so lockdowns are increasing deaths. I say all the extra deaths are from lockdown personally, and from scientific proof that we can substantiate, but we're getting somewhere now. So you're supporting a lockdown by going along with this nonsense. You're supporting the deaths of people that we've already established lockdowns do not prevent the deaths of those people. So you're doing something which we've already established now is going to kill more people. So why are you doing that? The recent mass study, which was refused by 3 major publications, including The Lancet, for obvious reasons when you read it. The only study, it must be repeated, the only study, they're all nonsense because they all come from tests that don't test for what they say it's testing for, but using their own nonsense bullshit statistics. The only study that has been a thorough investigation using COVID as the infectious agent as such, rather than influenza or other types of, quote, contagious diseases. And it categorically states, unless you class 0.3%, and that is a median range, so that what that means is it could actually make it worse, in all fairness, considering what the figures were given. That's just a median range that they give, and I'm assuming they probably gave that just to show it as some benefit, even if 0.3% means anything at all. But 0.3%, what the fuck do you do with that? For people to still defend that. It's come on. Just take your mask off. Accept you've been hoodwinked. What's it matter? Really, what's it matter? The man on the TV had one over you, did he? Is that the end of the world? In all fairness, everyone I know that hoodwinks, some people truly genuinely believe in this, but I'm assuming that's just due to fear and their probably like my dad, a strange respect for the BBC that they would never ever lie. But either way, I mean, come on. I mean, a lot of these people, if it was done in good faith, it's not as if anyone's accusing these people of, you know, doing anything other than acting in a way that they feel is helpful and protecting to the people that are vulnerable. And on that note, I'm extremely clinically vulnerable, as according to the letter from Matt Hancock, extraordinaire, who didn't even put his surname on the fucking thing, just put Matt. We're too busy saving lives from the virus. But I'm extremely clinically vulnerable by their own estimation. I've cuddled, kissed, shook hands. Oh shit, I'll say this now. I would share a drink with anyone. I would share a drink with anyone who've been diagnosed with a test that doesn't test for COVID, who've been diagnosed with COVID. I would be. I would share a drink with anyone. And I bet that person or anyone an insane amount of money, any amount they want, they'll be coming meet up in 3 or 4 weeks' time, and I'm absolutely fine. I mean, would I have the sniffles? I don't know. I wouldn't expect so. But I know full well there isn't some deadly disease going around. Might actually going to lock me in a building full of 5G, maybe. That might have something to do with people dropping down, which I've been looking into this week again in regards to blood clots. Because there's been quite a few, looking back over past articles, there's been quite a few reports of that associated with COVID, blood clots. Like BBC have done a few. It's intermittently, some months apart. And the effects of millimetre wave technology, you know, within the 5G frequency band, they've known for a long time to be able to cause, they coagulate the blood, to cause blood clots. That's on top of everything else when you've got the 60 gigahertz, which has been documented many, many times, which makes it very difficult to uptake oxygen into your system. Which essentially, and you can beam that to specific. So it's like this is just a terrifying thing, but within a care home, you just beam it within a care home. It's specific, not like a blanket thing that you can put over. The satellites from above were to be specific in that. I mean, that's the big monster on the horizon. The vaccines were part of that. I mean, people need to remember, I hope they already get that one of the major things of all of this, from the lockdowns to the masks to the fear-mongering to the constant perpetuation, all of it is the vaccine. That's the big punchline to all this. And I go as far as to say almost it's been perpetuated in large part specifically for that. So why would they do that? Well, if you're just bringing this vaccine you want everyone to have, and it's so important for reasons which I think I'll come on to another time, I've been talking a long while now, but it'll be linked with the smart grid. It'll be your own personal surveillance, financial system, health, everything will be potentially within the vaccine eventually. It might be one vaccine, but it'll be eventually. So, if you want that in everybody, because it has to be a universal currency, you want to get rid of cash and everything else to make this true. So no one's got an option. So if you want everyone to have that, and they just bought it in, how many people do you think would say, yeah, I'm up for that? Not many. Not many at all. Why would you? So how do you make the population have something, or even want something, which is even the bigger clincher? It's like Stockholm syndrome comes into it. People are asking for this, like turkeys voting for Christmas. How do you get people to want something that they wouldn't accept normally. The vast majority of people, you make them dependent on you. That's what all this has been about. You make them as dependent on as you possibly can by crushing businesses, crushing their work, making them fearful and they can't do anything. And then you dangle that vaccine in front of them with the intention of it meaning have this and you get this freedom back, which of course it will be freedom with all the caveats that we see, the tracking, the tracing, and you have to have the vaccine to get in anywhere. Which Nadine Dorries MP, her spokesman, Joe, I think Irwin is his name, but anyway, Joe, stated clearly as much, that you'll need it to do anything, essentially, because you'll be a threat to the community, which is the most ridiculous false statement any person could ever give. Has no validity whatsoever, as well as being quite the opposite. Welcome to 2020. Take a steady off.